Assalamualaikum and good day to each and everyone. I am Taslima Alawi Junaid and today I will be presenting my paper. Let's start with the importance of language. Language, as we all know from its simplest definition, is the method of human communication. Method of communication, especially for education. So basically, language plays an important role in learning and understanding the world we live in. So there is a need to master the language that we are using for communication. However, we have to keep in mind that there are several components necessary to master a language. Mastery of language is not just about being able to read, write, or understand concepts, as it also entails the mastery of the spoken language. Now, I guess you have observed from your students that most of the students can easily learn how to read or understand concepts or solve problems, but whenever they are confronted with speaking activities or whenever they are told to speak about what they have written, you can observe that they could barely deliver what they want to say. And this is mainly because, according to many research, this is mainly because of this what we call anxiety. Anxiety as one of the main factors that causes the undeveloped speaking ability of the students. Now, there are actually studies that I have reviewed that have the same theme with my topic in my thesis or in my paper. And one of these have looked into the perception of students towards the effective use of speech laboratories, and accordingly, anxiety is one of the factors that leads for students to not develop their speaking abilities. However, the paper was very limited because they only looked into the perception of students, towards the effective use of speech laboratories in their speaking skills, and this is why I got motivated in looking into the causes that triggers the language anxiety of students, and which is why I ended up with this paper entitled Language Anxiety Among Non-English Majors, the Case of Maranao Students from PIASI. O'Hare et al., he defined anxiety as a state of uneasiness brought on by fear. Moreover, he emphasized the factors that could lead to the onset of public speaking anxiety and situation-specific social anxiety that arises from anticipating giving an oral presentation. In the context of the Philippines, where English language is being practiced as the second language, anxiety is one of the main factors or one of the factors that greatly influence the learning and the acquisition of language, of second language. Actually, there are several topics or studies about Actually, there are several studies about this topic. For example, in the study of Aiden, he investigated the sources and levels of fear of negative evaluation as well as language anxiety among Turkish students as EFL students and to determine the correlation between the two. Another study is the study of Dr. Peroa, in which she investigated the language anxiety experienced by learners of English as a second language in Davao del Norte, Philippines. And aside from that, she also tried to determine the significant relationship between variables. Now, specifically their gender, their year level, that could be the influential or which could be influential factor in the success or failure in learning English. And then we also have the study of Schwang, in which he investigated what can contribute to English majors English as a foreign language learning anxiety by looking at university teachers' perception in Taiwan. You see, there are already a lot of studies about the same topic, but what makes my study unique among the studies that I have mentioned is that if you have observed these these studies, if you have observed, they focuses on anxiety felt by students who are studying English either as a second language or as a foreign language. But in my study, this time I will be looking into the factors that triggers the anxiety of non-English major. Another thing is that my paper does not just identify the factors that affect the students to have bad performance in speaking, But this study have also provided some information about how anxiety can be defeated through asking the students some of the techniques on how they battle with this kind of dilemma, this speaking anxiety. So this paper is suited to answer these two research questions. We have what are the causes that triggers the language anxiety of the participants, and the second question is what strategies are employed by the participants in reducing their levels of language anxiety. So in this paper, I have used three theories. We have the theory of Horwitz, which he called the foreign language anxiety theory. And then we also have the study of, we also have the framework of Gardner and Lambert, which is the integrative motivation and instrumental motivation. And then we also have the theory of Pentridge, which is the expectancy theories. So what is foreign language anxiety? Horwitz, as he postulated, that language anxiety is composed and a combination of the following components. We have the communication apprehension, test anxiety, and the fear of negative evaluation. To put it simply, when we say communication apprehension, basically this is the anxiety or this is the fear that students feel whenever they are communicating using the target language, which is in this case, we have the English language. That is communication comprehension. And then we also have test anxiety. Test anxiety is basically the fear that students feel whenever they are taking exam. That is test anxiety. And then we also have the fear of negative evaluation, which I think very self-explanatory, because when I say fear of negative evaluation, this is the fear that students feel. Let's say, for example, whenever they are presenting, we have oral recitation, they fear to speak because they don't want to be given negative evaluation, or natatakot sila, or they are afraid that people or their audience might laugh at them. And the second theory that I have used in this study is the integrative motivation and the instrumental motivation. So basically, Gardner and Lambert, they try to differentiate these two motivation. So if you're going to take a look at that, the instrumental motivation and the integrative motivation is somewhat similar to this, what we call intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So in their definition, integrative motivation is basically the positive attitude toward target language group and a willingness to integrate into the target language community. So basically, in intrinsic motivation, we have this what we call intrinsic motivation. You are trying to learn something without expecting something in return. Unlike in integrative motivation, in instrumental motivation or extrinsic motivation, you are learning the language or the English language itself because of some reason. Let's say, for example, you want to work in abroad, in Saudi Arabia, and you know that the people there speak in Arabic language. So basically, your motivation in learning the Arabic language is because you want to work there. So unlike in instrumental motivation, you are learning it because you want the language. You're not learning it because you want to work in Saudi Arabia. So unlike in extrinsic motivation, you are just learning the language because you want to work. You want to work in Saudi Arabia where Arabic language is being spoken. So that is the difference between extrinsic or the integrative and the instrumental motivation. And then we also have the expectancy theory. Expectancy theory, as postulated by Pentridge, is a belief about one's ability to control, perform, or accomplish a task. So basically, this theory is somewhat telling the students to have a positive mindset, positive mindset, because this theory says that it's based on what you expect. Now, if you manifest for things to be good, then there's also a possibility, there's a great chance that the outcome will also be good. And same if you expect things to be worse, then it will also be worse. So this present study centers on delving into the language anxiety of research participants. So basically, it seeks to illustrate the causes that triggers the language anxiety and to investigate the strategies that they employ in order to reduce such anxiety. Thus, this investigation employs a descriptive qualitative research method as it focuses on describing the phenomenon. It describes the phenomenon of language anxiety, and moreover, the data was collected through survey questionnaire adapted from the study of Zgovich. And then as for the participants of this study, we have 11 non-English major students who are currently enrolled in the first trimester of the academic year 2022 to 2023 at PIASE. And these target participants, you might be asking why I've chose these participants. It's basically because these target participants should be non-English major students who would manifest the language anxiety through a pre-survey questionnaire adapted also from the study of Zgovich. And moreover, these participants were chosen by me as they mostly exhibit and experience language anxiety. Thus, it would be very interesting to investigate the phenomenon of language anxiety among them. And then as for the instrument that I have used in this study, the first instrument was a survey questionnaire, particularly language anxiety scale adapted from the study of Zgovich. So this contains scenarios that ask participants how they feel in a contextualized situation. And moreover, for the data solicitation, I have conducted an open-ended interview. So the structure and the content of the interview was conformed on the research problems as elicited in this paper. And then as for the procedure naman, they have employed I have employed convenience sampling. This is a type of non-probability sampling technique where subjects are selected because of their convenient accessibility and proximity to the research. So this means that any non-English major students who is conveniently available and willing to participate were chosen as one of the respondents of this study. So moreover, I have chose this kind of sampling because the availability and proximity of the respondents. Hence, this sampling helps my study to be more visible. And then as for the method of analysis, several perspectives and frameworks of language anxiety was applied. Firstly, to know the level of language anxiety of students, the proposed model of Zgovich was used. So in addition, to establish the causes that triggers the participants' anxiety, the elicited data from the interview was transcribed and grouped into thematic arrangement. And also, since this study is mainly anchored on the theoretical lenses of Horwitz, Cope, Pentridge, and Garner, as I mentioned a while ago, they were used to discuss and expound the result of the finding. And finally, the findings was further sustained with the related studies that are discussed in the previous section. As for the result of this study, Table 1 shows the profile of respondents. So it appeared that most of them are male and only one female responded. This is mainly because of the course itself, which is usually taken up or dominated by male students. In this section, I have analyzed the data using the three components of language anxiety as proposed by Horwitz, such as communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. From the theory of Horwitz, it appears that most of the participants fall under the first concept, which is communication apprehension, that pertains to the anxiety experienced by learners when they communicate with the use of the target language to other, which is the English language. So the result can also be related to the third concept of the framework of Horwitz, which concerns on the worry of students that they may be misunderstood whenever they are communicating using the target language. In answering the first research question of this paper, I have used the theory of Horwitz on foreign language anxiety. He postulated that language anxiety is composed of and a combination of the following components: the communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. The first one pertains to the anxiety experienced by learners when they communicate with the use of target language to others. Additionally, the second component has to do with the fear in taking the examination, while the third one concerns on the worry of the students that they might be understood. It has been frequently argued by Horwitz that anxiety toward a language happens in a particular situation. Thus, a language learner may experience anxiety every time he or she speaks with fellow students or when talking to teachers of negative speakers of the language. So it is also possible that students feel uneasiness during the class recitation, reports, presentations, or dialogues, among others. Table 3, as you can see, discusses the anxiety that students have when they are in ESL class. So it appears that most of the students would feel very anxious when they know that they would have to speak in English inside the classroom. So as shown in the table here, 46% of the participants tend to forget what they are about to say and start to panic when they begin speaking in English. So the result also shows that even when participants have already prepared the things that they have to say, they would still feel anxious because they are afraid that their teacher would correct them if they make any mistake. In answering the second research question of this study, the researcher employed interview to know the strategies that the participants have used in battling with the anxiety that they encounter when speaking in front. So the result turned out that the most common coping strategy used by basic English students were inquiring friend lecturer, referring to sources such as Google and dictionaries, self-helping, self-motivation, positive thinking, shift focus, do, doing revision, listening and understanding, self-reflect, trying to perform, calming down, acceptance, exercise, taking time to think, entertainment, and laugh back to hide embarrassment. So the findings may help the language educators to prioritize their students' social emotional needs by removing or lessening the obstacles and challenges that the students go through when learning English by creating relaxed and non-threatening setting for the teaching and learning. In conclusion, since the issue of the speech anxiety could prevent students from succeeding at school and in future contact, there should be an interest for most teachers to learn more and more about methods that support students who feel uneasiness when communicating or unwilling to do so. So this paper gives strong suggestion for teachers to review the strategies that they use in their classroom, because learning has to be student centered, where adjusting approaches if needed based on the capacity of the students may be done for the students to relate to what is being taught. So this is because students learn more when they are comfortable with the environment or the lesson itself that is being taught. This is exactly why teachers has to know their students to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses that will surely help the teacher to solve such matters. So this may be done by letting the students have themselves introduced in front, or through giving those some kind of activities that will help the teacher determine a certain matter on certain skills, such as on speaking skill. So I think that's all. Thank you for listening.